go ahead and come down to your mat if you're not already. We will, let's start lying this morning. I feel like it's like good to lie down. If you need a pillow for your head or anything that's going to support you while you're lying down, go ahead and grab that. Of course, you can always keep the knees bent, but if you can straighten your legs out to the bottom of your mat, finding a moment to settle, letting go of all those technology woes as we come to a virtual place of practice, knowing that you can just forget about that and sink into your body, becoming a bit more aware of how you are feeling today. You can soften your gaze or close your eyes, and then finding your breath, taking a breath in and a breath out. Maybe softening your shoulders a little bit down from the ears. Just taking a moment to find where you need a little bit more space. Maybe your fingers need a bit more space, so actively opening them and placing them down, allowing those hands some support. And as you take these nice breaths, just take a moment to see if they are smooth or maybe a little jagged this morning. Are they big? Are they small breaths? How is that breath moving this morning? And taking a moment to think about what is your intention for today. Are you looking for some stillness? Are you looking to connect with your breath? Are you looking for some ease, maybe some peace? So just maybe pick one or two words that help sort of bring you into focus this morning as to how your practice will go. And then bringing a little awareness to the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes, and give them a little bit of movement. Might feel good to move your head from side to side, getting a little mobility through the neck. Might feel good to reach the arms up and over, nice long body stretch. Reaching the hands above your head, toes away from your belly button, really reaching, lengthening, finding a nice decompression to the spine, nice and long. And then go ahead and let those fingertips float down. You can keep your eyes open or closed, up to you, and bringing those knees in. Go ahead and just grab the tops of the knees this morning. So not a super tight little ball. We'll just have an open position here. You should find some space through your middle. And then with those hands, just gently guide the knees into some clockwise rotation. So rotating, you'll feel that sort of circle being drawn at the base of the spine, the low back, just getting a little bit of movement there. So like almost like a little massage. And not pulling the knees by any means, but see if you can let those knees be guided by the hands. And then we'll switch and go counterclockwise, other direction. And if there's any place where you sort of feel a bit of tension or a little bit of tightness, go ahead and move through that area a bit slower. See if you can bring your breath there, bring the movement there. Might feel good just to slow it down and keep that really intentional movement. Great. And then let the knees come to stillness and pause. And then from here, if you'd like, pull those knees a little bit deeper in towards the chest, feeling that compression in the lower belly, just grasping maybe below the knees now onto those shins, Really digging those elbows down, down, down towards the floor, but really trying to think of a nice long spine. So see if you can keep your tailbone facing away from your belly button or away from the middle of your body. Really try to get that tailbone on the ground and away. So try not to tuck too much through that pelvis. Awesome. Drop those feet down. Let them come close together, almost at the heels and the big toes touch. And we'll take our legs out to the side. Hands can stay on the top of the pelvis or by the hips. Drop those legs open, coming into that butterfly position, pressing those feet together. See if you can get a nice opening through the hips. Actively connecting those 2 feet if you can, the best that you can. And that feet can be a bit further away from the groin or pull them in a little tighter to the groin, just finding out where those hips are this morning. Again, just gentle movement to begin with through those hips. And then slowly closing those knees up, bottom of the feet come to the bottom or onto the floor. Take your hands now up towards shoulder height, fingertips facing up towards the ceiling. I think we've done this before, but I want you to see if you can synchronize those legs and arms together. So open up the legs as you open up the arms, and then closing up the arms, closing up the legs. So getting both movement through the shoulders and the hips. I invite you to try it with your breath. So as you exhale, you're going to close up the legs, close up the arms. As you inhale, you're opening up. And just see if you can let your breath be the guide. We're not counting how long we do the movement for. Simply see if your breath can guide you through how fast or how slow you go. One more time, opening up and then closing, kissing those hands together, kissing those knees together, feet back flat on the floor. Go ahead and bring those hands down to your side and roll over to your side. So come right onto your side. See if you can stack one hip on top of the other, and then think about your shoulder, one shoulder on top of the other. If you need something for support for your head, you're welcome to grab like a pillow, or you can even take your arm up here if that feels good for you. And then we'll kick our legs out straight away. So nice straight legs. Try to keep those feet connected if you can, and then see if you can still keep the hip one stacked on the other. So your leg should be an extension right out of the bottom of your body. So nice straight line with your body if you can. Shoulder in line with hip, hip in line with knee, knee in line somewhat with that ankle. And then flex those heels and see if you can press down through your bottom leg. So the side of your foot is pressing in, the hip is pressing. You might feel a little wobbly. So if you need to place your hand either on the floor or on that top hip, go right ahead. And then actively see if you can press through that bottom leg a bit more. And that top leg may want to float up just a tiny bit. So we're using the floor as our resistance as we press that leg in. The other top leg might want to float up a little bit, but really see if you got the balance and the strength through that bottom leg to press and press and press. Good. Kind of have to engage a little bit through the middle to hold you in this position. And press. Good work. So relax those legs to the point where you still have a strong foundation, but we're no longer actively pressing. And see if you can float that top arm up and see if you can bring it overhead. So reach overhead, getting a nice long body stretch, still supporting that head as much as you can. Good. Really flex through those feet. Almost imagine yourself standing and doing a side bend, but we're obviously not bending too much to the side, but we're getting that same sort of length through our torso. Awesome. Then allow those fingertips to float down. They may come in front of the body or up onto that hip. Take that bottom leg and now bend it so you have a bit more base of support, still keeping the top leg straight out. Lift it slightly up off of the other leg, and then we'll start drawing a couple circles with that top leg. So nothing too big, just little movement through the hip one way, Good. And then we'll reverse that circle, come the other way. So we're not going to go into big Jane Fonda leg kicks this morning, but we're doing a little more isolating work through that hip both ways. Good. Awesome. And then relax that leg down. Bend both knees and then see if you can tuck them in a little bit closer to you. So almost like you've made a 90-degree angle at your hip. So really get those knees up. Now, right now, we're going to release the arm if it's supporting your head and bring palm over palm. So hand over hand. You've got knees stacked, and now we've got hands and elbows stacked, arms straight out from those shoulders. Then from here, we're going to rotate through our upper spine and see if you could bring the top arm fingertips towards the ceiling. So a little bit of rotation through that upper spine. Lower spine has a little, but not as much. And then let those fingertips come back down. You might recognize this position shortly. We just got into it a different way today. Opening up again. Let's see if you can go a little further. That back shoulder or that top arm shoulder may not touch the ground yet. Coming down again and kissing those hands together. And then see if you can get that full rotation now. Open that arm all the way up and see if it can come down to the ground beside you here. So nice big twist. This time we got into it via our arms instead of our legs this morning. So get a little bit more of a thoracic spine or upper spine stretch. And then as we get all the way down to the ground, we get a full stretch through that spine. Good. Take some deep breaths here. Gaze can be forward or to either side, you choose. And then we're going to close these arms up, almost like we're closing a book, closing to finish our twist the other way. So close those arms up, shoulders stack one on top of the other, and come to the side lying position. Fantastic. So it's up to you if you want to roll through center and come to the other side. We'll come to lay on the other side. I myself am going to just switch where my legs are so I continue to face forward. So starting up, getting that first position. So stacking those hips one on top of the other, shoulder on top of shoulder, cradle the head or use that pillow, feet stacked as well as really quite flexed. And then just see if you can get this nice long body. Almost imagine yourself standing as best you can so that you've got this really nice long integrity to the body. Hand can be on that top hip or down in front just to sort of stabilize you. So just trying to find that balance without feeling like we're going to fall over one way or the other. Now thinking of that bottom leg, press that bottom leg into the ground. Feel the ground pressing equally back at you. Press, press, press. Working through the hip abductor on the side of our hip. Press down, down, down. And then release it for a moment and we'll try that again. So it might feel like that top leg wants to float up a little bit. It's just sort of a counterbalance to as much as like you're pushing down. So this leg needs to balance by coming up a bit. So again, press down, really flex through those ankles. Press, press, press. Nice work. Activating that side of the hip that's touching the ground. It's the one that you may start feeling good. And then release, bending that bottom knee, giving yourself a bigger base of support, but keeping that top leg straight. Lift it up slightly and we'll go into that little bit of rotation. So see if you can make tiny circles with your heel, really tiny. That movement is only coming from the hip. That pelvis should be still. Good. And then we'll reverse that direction. That head of the femur moving in the joint. Excellent. Then drop that leg down, meet it with the bent knee below, and then bring those knees up so that you're Your hip is bent at about a 90-degree angle. Allow those arms to come out from the shoulder, one arm on top of the other. If you still need that cushion for the head, please do keep it. Then we're going to drive this twist from the upper body. So lifting the arm up first just to ceiling height. So fingertips towards the ceiling and then closing those hands. See if you can come a little bit further now, opening up past the ceiling, but shoulder is probably still off the floor. Good. And then rather than the arm driving the movement, actually think of the twist coming from the upper spine. So the arm's sort of coming along for the ride, but it is the spine that's actually moving you to where you can get that arm maybe to come down to the floor. Just wiggle a little bit. You might have to adjust the other shoulder just to get that twist happening. And then again, the head can look either up or forward or over the opposite shoulder. So getting ourselves into that nice twist. A little bit more awareness in stacking those hips and knees because the movement doesn't come from there. The movement is coming from the upper body. Take one more breath here. And then as you exhale, you can bring those fingertips up and over, closing those arms together. Great. Now go ahead and release those arms and bring them underneath your shoulders. We'll press ourselves all the way up to a tabletop position. From here, we'll just quickly go from tabletop right back into a child's pose. So press those heels back. Your hips back to the heels. And then maybe to start with today, maybe just come down on those forearms. We don't need to drop the head just yet. Just allowing the hips to come back. Might want to focus on elbows staying underneath shoulders, really having a really good support with the hands and forearms here. And then coming up to press into those elbows, think about bringing, let me start that again. Keeping your hips pressed back, press into your elbows and lift your forearms off the mat. So it's almost like you've lifted your support up. So it's a little bit more balance here. And then just take a couple wrist rotations here. So elbows are pressing into the ground, wrists are rotating, hips are still back on those heels. We can switch directions. Let's get a little bit of movement before we jump back up onto our hands and knees. Good. Place those hands down, lift those hips up, coming back into that tabletop position. So again, pressing to the tops of the feet, hips stacked over knees, wrists underneath elbows. Try to think about the armpits of the elbows, or just right where that bend is, are facing each other. So go ahead and take a look at that. If those elbows are positioned well, so that's just a little bit of an internal rotation of that arm bone. Good. Spread those fingertips wide apart. Good. Tucking that tail under, round that back. Lift that spine up towards the ceiling as you chuck the chin, nose, and forehead down. Really get a big, long stretch. And then when you're ready, allow that pelvis to tip forward, releasing that belly, pulling that heart center through those arms, forehead, nose, and chin come up. So go ahead and take yourself through, let's say 5 good cat-cows. We'll finish with a cat and then come to a straight spine. So we'll try not to end on that back bend simply because we want to always release a back bend. So make sure you do a cat first and then come back to balance at that neutral position. Taking it through your own breath, your own cycle here. Go with maybe a little slower movement where you feel a little bit more tension. Or go a little faster if you want to heat up a little bit more. Coming back to that flat back when you're ready. And then we'll take we're going to take our right hand first. So we'll take our right hand and walk it off towards the right. So fingertips come out to the side, tent them up for a moment. And then if it feels good to you, lift that arm up out to the side. So reach those fingertips out away from you. Good, and then bring that hand back underneath the right shoulder. We'll go to the left side. So first walk those fingertips to the left, and then lift that left arm out to the side. So different sort of movement than bringing it above our head. Bring that left hand back down, plant that left hand. So we're going to incorporate a little bit of leg work now with this arm position. So we'll take that right arm out to the side, and then see if you can kick back the left leg. Elevate those toes if you can. So a little bit different position here. One arm out to the side, your left leg is back. Now, if you can bend your knee and kick that heel up so that the bottom of your foot is facing towards the ceiling. Good. Really strong through the middle. 3, 2, and 1. Lower that left knee down towards the mat. Let that right hand come down underneath. Awesome. Let's try that left side now. So left arm out to the side, a little bit different, feels a little different. Shoulders being challenged a little differently. Lift that right leg back, kick that heel back to begin with. Nice long right leg. Try to keep those hips parallel to one another. Try not to lift too high, and then bend that right knee. Flex that foot quite a bit so that the bottom of your foot is facing the ceiling. Awesome strength. Hold it here for 3, 2, 1. Slowly lower that right knee. Lower that left arm. And then just take a moment to come back into that child's pose. Let's extend it a bit more this time. Reach those fingertips ahead of you. Tent those fingers up if you can and drop that head between those two arms. If it's available to you, you might actually touch the forehead to the floor. If not, don't worry about it. Just really try to think of a nice long neck. I don't want any wrinkles on the back of your neck. Good. You might want to actively press through those fingers. Just let those hips sit back a little bit further. And then slowly lower those palms down to the floor if they're tented up, and come back up to that tabletop position. Might need to adjust where those hands are. They might slide back a bit to get back under those shoulders. So from here, we're going to do a similar movement with the right arm. We're going to bring it out to the side. But this time I want you to see if you can add that rotation. Rotate and open the chest away from that left arm. Good. And then take that right hand and feel like someone has grabbed your right hand and tried to pull it underneath the left, but keep it elevated off the ground. So we're trying to really open up that right shoulder blade as we bring that right hand underneath. Imagine there's a string or someone's grabbing that right arm and they're pulling and pulling and pulling. And then open up again, bringing that right arm all the way up as high as you can. Get a little twist. And then drop that right hand down. Coming over to the left side this time. Left arm comes out to the side. See if you can open up that chest a bit. Add that twist through the torso. And then let those left fingertips thread underneath the right arm, but don't drop the arm. Think that hand is getting pulled and pulled and pulled. Awesome work, everybody. Looking great. Good. And then releasing that left hand, coming up, adding that little bit of twist, and planting that left hand down. All right, we're going to go a little further. Here we go. Right arm out to the side, lifting up, twisting that right arm up. This time if it's available to you, thread that right arm through, but allow that shoulder to come down to the ground. Hips stay stacked over knees. Keep that bum up. Head comes down. Maybe the cheek side of your right side of your face comes to the floor. So getting a really big opening through the back. Really press down through the tops of your feet so not all the weight goes into your head. So think about your feet there, doing some active work here to hold you. And then press into that left hand, opening that arm up. Let's go all the way up through that twist one more time. And then letting that right arm come down. Excellent. We'll do that on the left side now, threading the needle. Open that left arm up. A little bit of twist through that upper spine. Then let those fingertips thread through under that right arm and then bring that left shoulder down, head supported, cheek is supported. See if you can spiral a little bit more to get that space between that left shoulder blade and the spine. So really trying to get that opening happening. Relax, keep those hips lifted. Take a couple more breaths. Heavy through those feet. Good, and then really press down through that right hand to get you back up, lifting that left arm up, 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 spiraling that chest open, and then dropping those left fingertips down. Awesome job. Press those big toes together, open those knees apart. We'll come into a wide-legged child's pose. Walk those fingers forward. They can be tented up or not, and really find big length through the back. Might want to wiggle a little bit and see where you can get those hips back a little further or get a little bit more space through those two shoulder blades. Reconnect to your breath. Slowly press yourself up, coming to a tabletop for a moment. So get your knees under your hips, and then we'll sit back onto our heels for a moment and then just shake those wrists out. That was a lot of heavy duty work on the wrists there, tabletop and the threading the needle and all of that fun stuff. So just release any tension you may have there. Okay, so we'll dive back forward into that tabletop. We're going to play a little bit more with the hips. So really generously spread those fingertips apart because they're going to be our support here. Lifting that right leg back behind you just for a moment, kicking it back. Hands are grounded, just the leg is up. Now bringing that right knee in towards in between those two hands. So really squeeze it up and forward and then kick it all the way back. So really strong sensation through the belly area as you drive that knee forward between those two hands and then press all the way back. Really keep those hips parallel to one another. And then on your last one here, really press that knee forward and then see if you can come forward onto that knee. So back leg stays relatively bent here. We're coming forward into what would be a little bit of a pigeon, not a full pigeon by any means, but coming into that pigeon. I just want to show you here how we can get there to a pigeon. Awesome. Press down into those hands, let that leg come back, extend it one more time, and then bring it down towards the left. So getting into pigeon pose, this is one way we can do it where we can drag that knee forward. I'm going to show you another way shortly, but let's go to the left-hand side. Kick that left leg back and straight. Bending that left knee, bringing it up. Squeeze that belly as you bring that knee forward, forward, forward. Good. Kick that leg back, all the way back. Extend that leg. Draw that knee in again. Squeeze through the belly. Bring it up between those two hands. Go ahead and press all the way back. So really working the muscle group on the front of our hip, that hip flexor, but also engaging those abdominals as we sort of round that back as that knee comes forward. On your last one here, really draw that knee forward, 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 and then place it between your two hands. Back knee is slightly bent, and then see if you can wiggle those hands a little bit and find this sort of initial pigeon pose. So I'm not going into full pigeon simply because I really want to get alignment before we really take ourselves there. So we'll get there. Don't worry. Now press into those hands. Let that leg kick back one more time. Good. And then lower that knee down. Excellent. Make sure those hands are underneath those shoulders and just knock the hips from side to side. We'll come now to a seated position. So swing those legs out to the side. Come and sit down. We'll take our legs out straight in front of us. You can move those fleshy bits to make sure those sit bones are nice and grounded. If you need to sit on something, go right ahead, and you can give those legs just a little bit of a shake out. So from here, make sure you're sitting up nice and tall. Lift out of that pelvis. Drop those shoulders down and back. Take those fingertips to those shoulders, and let's swing those elbows in towards each other, opening up nice and wide and dropping down. Good. Opening up, rounded, really press into your heels, sitting up nice and tall. Slight bend in those knees if you need to. So active sitting position. It looks like we're doing nothing, but you're really staying strong right through that middle to keep you upright. Good. And as those elbows come forward, let's switch the direction. So opening back now, these little chicken wings coming forward and kissing back together. Good. Excellent. One more time through, then we'll place those hands down beside our hips. Good. Plant them down. Excellent. Take those right fingertips up towards the ceiling. Really stretch and lift, like almost take a moment to like unplug your shoulder and then plug it back in so that we can see the difference when we rise up and we're crunching ourselves here. We want the difference is some space here to allow that shoulder to really be in the joint. And then from here, we'll just simply hinge over to the side. You might want to bend that elbow into the waistline. Good. And reach back up. Drop those fingertips down. We'll let those left fingertips shoot up again. You might want to unplug or plug just to sort of play with that joint for a moment. And then find that position where you've got some space. And then taking that elbow of your right arm and tucking it in, and then we'll hinge over to the side. Doesn't have to be big. Let's get a nice opening through those ribs. Good, and coming back up. Beautiful. Let's take our right leg, bend it as high as you can comfortably, and then drop the knee out to the side. So our torso is sort of turned a bit, so we need to turn it to face over top of that straight leg. So it is actually a little bit of twist to get us there. And take your fingertips, walking down either on top of the leg or to the side, hinge forward. Now go ahead and bend that knee a little bit if you need to. This is sort of our first forward fold here. So don't feel like you have to have a straight leg, but the whole idea is to twist and get that torso right over top of that left leg. Good. And then walk those hands up. From here, take your left hand and grab the bottom of your right foot. And then take your, this is your left hand, sorry, your right hand and cradle that knee. So see if you can get sort of like, it's almost like your leg turns into a little baby here. And just see if you can give it a little bit of a rotation, a little bit of a rock. And then it might be okay to sort of readjust and see if you can get a little bit more of this sort of movement of the shin, the lower leg coming towards the torso. So again, getting this rotation through the hip. Try really hard not to reef on the knee. The movement should be coming from the hip. Good. And then take that ankle and place it on the top of the left thigh. So here is sort of a modified pigeon, right? You've got this sort of action at the hip and the shin, and then just see how that feels. Maybe point and flex those toes a little bit to see if that makes any sort of difference in your body. Awesome. Then take that foot and place it down to the inside of that left thigh. Take your hands now and twist towards that bent knee, bringing each hand on side by side that bent knee, and then hinge forward over that leg and see what it feels like. Really press down through that left hip. Keep grounded as you hinge forward. That forward fold may be not as great. Good. And then walk those hands up. Now, here's our pigeon. Here we go. So watch for a second if you want. We're going to plant those hands still beside that bent knee. From here, I'm going to lift my hips up, taking my back leg back and coming right on top of that front right leg. So it's a bit of a rotation happening through the spine, really planting those hips and rotating up into pigeon. So pigeon here is more of a true pigeon because my back leg is straight. So play with that a little bit. Just sort of see, like, what does that feel like to sort of find that rotation? If that's not good for your knee, think about lifting up and not loading up that knee. So you might have to keep that knee slightly elevated and just see if you can play with that a little bit. Pigeon is such a huge pose and people love it and they hate it. So you can decide sort of what your love affair is with or hate affair with pigeon is. But this is another way to get ourselves with those hands framed around that bent knee. So just a little playtime. We're not going to hold it by any means. It is a very strong pose. Good. And when you're ready, you can come back. We'll straighten both legs out and just give them a little bit of a kick out. So some people like getting into it that way. They find that they can position their pelvis a little bit easier as opposed to when we're on our hands and knees and kicking that knee forward. Anyways, just a little thing to play with. So let's take now our left leg, give it a good bend, pull it in towards the torso, dropping that knee out to side, pressing the left foot into that right thigh. Really dig down through that heel. Take that torso, rotate it slightly towards that straight leg, and then walk those fingertips down the shin, down the side of the leg. Slight bend in that knee as you need. Feel a real nice release through the low back, maybe through the back of the hamstring. Again, the goal is to get well, really, there's never a goal, but the idea is get your torso towards your thigh. No need to get the nose to the shin by any means. Good, and then walk those fingertips back. We'll take our right hand to the bottom of that left foot. Take your left hand and cradle that knee and just give a little bit of movement. See what that feels like. Might feel a little different than the other side. Then you might want to try to reconnect. So almost kick that leg away a little bit and see if you can bring it a little closer in. Again, making that movement happen at that hip a bit more than anything else. Cradling that baby maybe a bit tighter, a bit further away. What feels good in your body? And keeping that spine too, right? So we could start to kind of crunch back and get it really high, but then there goes the spine. So still sitting up nice and tall. See where it's best for you to sit and get length, but also get nice opening through the hip. Good, and then place that left foot down onto the top of the right thigh. See how that feels. Maybe grab those toes and point and flex for a moment. See how that feels. A little bit of awareness through the foot. And then we'll let that leg come down, bottom of the left foot into the right thigh. Again, active through that left heel or right heel as best you can. Now rotate, and now over top of that bent knee, folding forward. See if you can walk those fingertips down, but keep that right hip grounded down. Keep it down. Really leaning a little bit, but making sure that that pelvis stays grounded onto the floor. Good, and then walk those fingertips back. Time for some play. If you want to watch first, I'm planting my hands. I'm pressing in, lifting up, and rotating that back hip so I can come into my pigeon. So that's the action that we're looking for. Just play with it a couple times. No need to feel like you have to hold that pigeon. It is a very strong position, particularly for the hip, but also for the knee. Getting a little bit of rotation and movement through that lumbar spine as well feels kind of good. And then once you feel like you've had enough, go ahead and have a seat. We'll kick both those legs back and forward and let them kick out a little bit. Alrighty, so we will take our legs off to the side. We'll come quickly just to a tabletop briefly, and we'll press back, tucking our toes. So tuck your toes under so you can come up into this tiny little squat. Tiny little squat here. Awesome. So from here, I'd like you to see if you can walk forward in this squat. So I'm going to see if I take my hands off for a second, see if I can do a little walk, a little bit of balance, a little bit of finesse. See if you can walk yourself forward. Awesome. Right to the front of that mat. Balance, balance. Okay, now here's the true test. Let's see if we can go backwards. Little baby steps. Try not to touch the ground if you can. Little low crouch. Concentrate. Balance. Woohoo! A little bit of wibbly wobbly here. Haven't done this probably since like what? Grade two gym class. Awesome. Back of the mat now. Or as close to the back as you can. Good. And then I'm going to just face you forward for a second. What we'll try to do in this position is kiss our heels together. I'm going to walk to just the center so you can see my heels. So see if you can get those heels kissing, toes out to the side, and then open those knees up a little bit. Good. Hands can come down to the floor, hinge forward here, and see if you can connect the inside of your thigh with your elbows. So press. And what you might want to play with, just for fun, is sort of just coming forward a little bit, a little higher on those toes, and leaning slightly forward. So come a little bit forward. Good. A little bit more forward, a little bit of playtime. So this is sort of a prep for what we call crow pose. And you've probably seen crow before. It's pretty amazing. People are balancing themselves on their two arms. We will not be doing that today, but I wanted to give you a chance to sort of play a little bit with this crow. So I'll give you a side view here. So what could happen is as you come forward, you press into the inner thigh with those elbows, and you can lift those hips up a bit. So, you would get to the sort of this position and be able to support yourself. So just simply coming forward and back, really good for the feet and strength for those wrists. But again, not crow by any means today. It's just experimental day. We'll try playing with it a bit. Good work, everybody. Okay. So from here, think about bringing those elbows in again, and we'll do one more little balance here while we're down here. So kiss those heels together if you can, but bring those hands up, pressing at heart center. Really activate those two hands and see if you can sit yourself up a little bit more, strong through the middle. Balance. Stacking those shoulders over pelvis, kissing those heels together as best you can. Good work. Holding for 3, 2, and 1. Go ahead, slowly lower. Hands down. And then go ahead and walk those hands forward because you're at the back of your mat. Walk them forward, drop those knees, and we're going to come all the way down to our belly. All the way down. Nice job. Release those toes. Might feel good to just sort of kick out those feet for a moment. Just releasing the opposite angle here on that ankle. Good. And we'll place our hands one stacked on top of the other for a moment, forehead supported there. And we'll bend our knees and we'll just windshield wiper those legs from side to side. So just let them go for a moment. Really big stuff for the hips today. Those low squats, the pigeon pose, lots of work through those hips. So Good to release them this way, give them a little bit of mobility and release. Okay, so let's drop those feet down. Get the tops of your feet pressed into the ground. So really orient yourself here now that we're on our belly, almost like, again, we're standing. Nice long spine, but our feet are now tipped. So tops of the feet pressing into the ground. Then let the forehead come to the floor as best you can. If you need to cushion that or give you support, go ahead, because we'll take our hands away and bring them out towards the side of our body. So really reach those arms away, as we've done a little bit today in the hands and knees position. Both arms at the same time this time, though. Tent up those hands, so lift the palms off of the floor. Press down through your pubic bone and the tops of the thighs, and slowly peel your forehead, nose, and chin up off the floor. So you're not going to come very high, but you've got these sort of points of contact, 5 on one side, 5 on the other with those fingertips. Long through the neck, try to keep a nice long spine. Engage that lumbar spine here. We're going to lift a little bit more, press into that pubic bone for 3, 2, and 1. Slowly lower down. Now, the challenge, if you'd like to take it, is we'll take our hands actually all the way off the floor. So they're just going to be like hovering over the floor. And then from here, we'll do our same little cobra here, but with no arm support. So really engaging the back, a little bit of the glutes, pressing to that pelvis as we lift our forehead, nose, chin, coming up, up, up as best you can, long through the neck. And as we do more back extension, we do find that we do lift a little higher. So really think about that heart coming forward towards that short end of the mat for 3, 2, and 1, lowering down. Our third time through, your choice. What do you want to do? Do you want to have the tented hands, palms kind of elevated off the floor, or do you want the hands completely elevated off the floor? You decide. We're working on the strength of our back body. Here we go. Forehead, nose, chin, you decide. But look at how beautiful this is. You can come a little bit higher. Good work, everybody. Hold it here for 3, 2, and 1. Amazing. Drop that forehead down. Bring those hands just back. You can stack them again if it feels good, or have them just at your side. Bend those knees, and we'll knock those feet from side to side a bit. Just release that low back a bit, those hips a bit. Good work. So we'll move into a little bit of neck work just to finish up today. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm finding it's getting to be a bit sore with a lot of desk work. So we're going to drop our feet down. And I think we've done this before. We're simply going to move our head to one side, taking our chin to our shoulder and allowing our cheekbone to support us on the floor. So you're almost trying to listen, wrong sense, listen to the floor. Palms of your hands can be open towards the floor if you'd like. That gives you a little bit more opening through the front of the shoulder and the chest. Just try to find that position where you can let gravity, let the head sink into the floor. And then taking that gaze over the other shoulder, rotating the head and bringing the opposite cheekbone to the floor. Soften those shoulders. Listen to the floor, what's happening. And then slowly bring that forehead back towards the center. So tuck that chin maybe just a tiny bit. Land that head, the forehead down. If this feels okay with you, go ahead and just move your head from side to side in the smallest movement, getting a little massage through between the two brows. Release a bit of the sinus. Good, and then come to pause. Taking your big toes now, take your awareness down to your feet. Bring those big toes together as best you can, and then try to roll open those legs. So see if you can expand the back of your pelvis by letting your two thighs roll out away from each other with those two big toes touching. So here we get expansion through those two hip bones. They're getting lengthening as we roll them open. Those quadriceps, the tops of the thighs, want to contract really quite a bit, and maybe your glutes want to go too. Just see if you can bring softness everywhere in your lower belly and lower body. Just release anything that's holding. It might take a couple breaths. This is the opposite action that we require the hips to do in pigeon. So it is a nice kind of finishing here after all that hip work we did today. Good, and then let those hips roll back, bottoms of the feet come maybe to the mat. Take your hands up by those shoulders, press yourself up one last time here in a nice child's pose. You decide how you want that child's pose to look. Maybe knees apart, maybe knees together, hands maybe stacked, maybe straight above your head, or maybe you want to take those hands and curl them around your heels back behind you, letting that forehead be the support. So you decide what feels best for that child's pose. The final one, we did a lot of them today. Feels good to release that low back. And then pressing yourself up, we'll swing our legs to the side and come down onto our backs. Rolling yourself down, however feels best for you. Finding that position, bending those knees to begin with. Just taking one more little chance to work on our hip, and not so much work, but simply get a little bit more movement through those hips. So we'll straighten that right leg up towards the sky, and we'll come back to that heel, drawing a circle. So just these tiny little circles with the heel. Again, thinking about that hip doing the movement. I've actually got my hand right in that hip crease to feel that sensation. And we'll go the opposite direction. Really keeping that pelvis still as best you can. Using that hip, good. And then release that right leg, taking the left leg up now towards the ceiling, flexing that heel, taking that heel and drawing that circle. If you need a slight micro bend in that knee, totally fine. And then going the opposite direction. Good, and release that left foot down. We'll go back to where we began. Take those fingertips just above the shoulders. Bring the big toe and those heels pressing together on a nice big exhale. Let that body sink down, opening those thighs apart, coming into that butterfly or Baddha Konasana is the formal word here. Arms out to the side, allowing ourselves just to settle here in this wide open position, releasing ourselves to the floor. And if you aren't particularly loving this position for your legs, you're welcome to straighten the legs out and come into your Shavasana. Or if you want to stay in this butterfly pose, you're welcome to stay here. But as we sort of finish our practice today, you decide what feels best for you. If you need to grab a pillow for your head, If you have a blanket nearby you want to cover up, you can. But you decide which position serves you best. Softly bringing your attention back to your body, to your space, allowing some small movements to occur in your body, maybe through your fingers and your toes, ankles and wrists. Take one more nice, nourishing breath as you lie here. And then slowly roll yourself over to one side. And as you're ready, slowly press yourself up to a nice seated position. Taking your hand to your heart center, you can press those two hands together, bringing thumbs to the breastbone. Take a nice deep breath in and just feel the movement of your chest towards your thumbs. Knowing that your breath is always there for you to find some peace and calmness in your day-to-day life. The light in me sees the light in all of you. Thank you so much for coming this morning. Namaste.